Alright YouTube, what is going on? It is ConflctNerd here today, bringing you my first ever Cities Skylines video. In this video today, we're not starting a let's play, we're doing a let's build, which is basically where I go ahead and I build something that I want to go ahead and create and detail it up as much as possible. Today's episode is going to be a school. Now you might ask yourself, a school's already in the game, there's a school building. I'm thinking here more of a private school with playing fields, with a bus park, all that sort of stuff. That is what I'm going to be building today, and in future episodes I will do different buildings, such as maybe a military base I've been thinking about. I really want to do a rail yard and also want to do a port area. Now from that you might go ahead and ask, well why don't you just go ahead and start a let's play series? And I'm half thinking about it. Right now I don't have the most amount of time. I could easily go ahead and start a Skyline series, however it wouldn't be as detailed as this. Now this is my first ever build and this is my first ever Skylines video, as I said, so if it's not up to par, if it's not like the usual people you watch Skylines, then I do apologise. I'm still learning the game. I usually play other games and this is really a game that I've observed for a long time, however it's not a city builder that I've really got into. The reason for that is just because I feel that you have to be very skilled and you have to be a good builder to go ahead and produce videos on it. That's why I've not played it and I've really stuck to Cities XXL up till now. However, in recent times in my spare time, I've gone ahead and started playing around with this game, just basically watching a few people's different videos, going ahead and picking up tips, installing the correct mods, playing around with different scenery and mods which really help me out, because starting off in City Skylines is quite difficult, especially when you're comparing yourself with the people you're watching. You're like, actually this is absolutely awful, I should not upload this, or I should not build this, I should just destroy this. And over time I have got a little bit better. I'm really not saying I'm any good now, but this is probably, I'm at the stage now I feel where I can go ahead and upload something and just share it with people and hopefully it'll get an alright response. Anyway, so where did the idea of the school come from? Well, it actually came from one of Dylan's live streams. Basically, I'm part of the ConflctNerd family, as most of you know. If you go down into the description below, there are many other members. I think everyone bar Finn right now is actually doing City Skylines on their channel, so it's a really popular game within the family. It's a really popular game in general. There is a large streaming and YouTube community for it. Now he was talking about his new Let's Build series and basically said, oh, I'd like to build a school with loads of playing fields and that sort of stuff. And I was like, you know what, just as a starter project, let's go ahead and see how I do. So I decided to go ahead, not in this build, but in another build, off camera, just go ahead and see what I could do, see what mods I needed, and I went ahead and built something which wasn't too bad. However, I thought, you know what, if I go ahead and restart, then I can go ahead and record it one. I now know what mods I need, because in that previous build, I was going in and out of the game, downloading stuff, for example, bus stops and buses. That was one of the big issues I was having. I also kept on getting my game to crash for some reason, and halfway through I go ahead and try place down an object, and unfortunately my game lands up corrupting, so it made for a really scary moment, but I managed to resolve it in the end. Anyway, so enough with that. Let's go ahead and actually talk about what we are building. So far you've seen me just build a basic road layout. This isn't modelled on any school, this is really just modelled on where I need to go ahead and fit objects and that sort of stuff in, really. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and built roads. I basically built an entrance road, then a square, then another road coming up to this basically circle where the school fits off. And I've decided to go for a variation of the default high school in this game. I did look at some other high schools on the workshop, however none of them really went ahead and satisfied me, so I decided to go ahead and go with the default one. Now I'm trying to build this sort of like a private school. You're not really going to get, or especially where I'm from, the United Kingdom, you don't get public schools with loads of large playing fields and that sort of stuff, with stadiums, tennis courts. Some do, but very few do. So this is mainly sort of, I was going for the more private school feel, and private schools are also going to be, in general they tend to be quite small, just because you focus on quality, not quantity. But once I selected the school building, from there I just got started. So the main sort of boulevard, I guess you could say, leading right up to the school, I wanted to make that really fancy, so I decided to go ahead and add in some fountains. I then went ahead and added in loads of hedges around the paths, and at either side of the fountains I just basically added an area of trees, which I thought looked really nice. Now I am drawing hedges here, the hedges are not aligned. I am using a different sort of mod from what people usually use. I'm not going ahead and lining them up too well. However, I feel this is probably the best way to do it. I don't know if there's a better way, and I am still learning, as I said, so I am looking at a few different line drawing mods, because with some line drawing mods, they don't actually draw them in a straight line. This, fortunately, you do draw them in a straight line, however they do not do corners very well, so that's a disadvantage to this mod. However, I do still really enjoy using this mod. Now, once I did that, I went ahead and added in some benches as well, just some smaller details, stuff that you're not really going to recognise, but I really have a lot of OCD when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I did pay extra attention to detail, and especially the area leading up to the school, you really want that to be detailed, just because that is one of the areas where people are going to focus on the most. So time to go ahead and slow down with my talking, that is for sure. So after we built the entrance to the school, I decided, you know what, we're going to need to have some car parks. Now, going back to my high school, you weren't really allowed to bring your own car to school. However, I wasn't really necessarily modelling the school after a British school or an American school or anything like that. So I thought, you know what, we still need to have some car parks anyway, because staff members are going to want to park. If it's a private school, then parents, that sort of stuff. So I thought, you know what, we need some car parks. So I had that relatively close to the school, however not too close to the school, just a wee bit off, and they fit perfectly into this location. From that, one thing that I am struggling with right now is concrete. Concrete, it's just weird when you draw paths. I'm not really at all sure why that is, if that is just the game. So I'm trying to build walls and cover up like lines in the concrete. That was what I was trying to do. However, building walls at odd angles, it was really difficult. So I think right now, as you can see in the background, I'm struggling to fill in corners here. I think I just land up going for flower pots in the end, because I can't get any walls to really fit, which is kind of frustrating. But hopefully I'll be able to sort my concrete situation out. The real thing is that I try and use the concrete brush, and say for example I have prop and tree anarchy on, I still can't place it over stuff, which is really frustrating. So I have to go ahead and use a different concrete mod or asset, I think it's a mod, which basically fills an area of concrete in, which you'll see later when I build the bus park, and it's not as ideal. So I'll need to work that out. That's why I'm not really starting the series yet, just because there's a lot of little things that I need to go ahead and work out. One improvement which I would say I would make now looking back at this Let's Build is that I would like to add cars into the car park. I had some cars installed, but I wasn't at all sure where they were, just because it would make the car park look much more detailed, much more realistic, and I think it would add a little extra. So the next thing I decided to go ahead and do was basically build the playing fields area. This is again where this sort of original idea generated from. So there's this big square on the lead up, and this is where I want to have all the different sports facilities for the high school. So start off by building a soccer stadium. I then realised that, and that's one thing I keep on doing, prop and tree anarchy. Always go ahead and build stuff with that on, and it's just really annoying when you see a tree like poking through an object and then you're like, shit, I have to rebuild that. Fortunately it didn't happen too many times, so I've still not snapped out of it, and I think people do have that problem quite often. I do go ahead there and lay down two different soccer fields. However, I decided to just go with the one. At my old high school, basically we had loads and loads of soccer fields, but they didn't have stands or anything like that. It was just basically just grass with lines on them, so it makes sense to have multiple of them. However, I decided to just put the one in. I do go ahead and add in quite a lot of different things actually. So we have a baseball field, as you can see, we have 2 tennis courts, we have 2 netball basketball courts, we have a running track as well in there. I think that was about it for all the different sports things I had. I then just go ahead and add some weaving paths throughout the grounds, just because I don't want the grounds to be, you know, plain old boring. I do want to have some different pathways which weave in and around the grounds, which make it a little bit more exciting. So once I finish off this, I don't go ahead and add trees till the very end, so it does look a bit bare at this stage. I'm basically just playing around with different paths right now. After this, I go ahead and start work on the area which takes me the longest. It's the bus park. Now, I'm not really at all sure why this takes me the longest. It's just the way I think I laid it out, and I was trying to pay so much attention to detail, I think, with this. So basically at the start of the grounds, this is where I decided to build it, and this is what I mean. You'll see in a second here, I'm about to fill this area up with concrete. I do it, which I don't think this is the most efficient way to go ahead and fill this area up, and it definitely can cause some problems with your paths at the side of roads. as you'll see in a second. Fortunately though, I managed to go ahead and fill the area no problem at all. But all I do is go ahead and put down a concrete surface, which you can see I'm doing now, and then I go ahead and just basically put stuff over it. So I put like pillars, bus stops, buses, which you will see in a few moments. I paid a lot of attention to detail to this area. Not really at all sure why, but this part of the build definitely gets my creative side across, just because I've basically gone ahead and just placed down so far assets and props which are already in the game, like the school, the stadiums for example. So this is my first chance to sort of go ahead and get creative. Now, you can't really be that creative when it comes to a bus area. However, I did go ahead and add in as much as possible, for example with that bus lane there. Now, one thing which I'm not at all sure how you sort of go ahead and do, and I was a bit annoyed at, as you see I'm building an entrance and an exit to this small area. It has a sign. I think it's a speed limit sign as you go in. I don't think there's any way to remove them, but is there any way to remove them with any mod? If there is, then go ahead and please tell me down below, just because I don't like having that sign poking out in the middle there. I think it is just a bit stupid. So this next bit, I'm just going to basically show you bits of, so the way that I had to do this was I did like 10 buses at the top. I had to do them at an angle because of the way the bus doors open. If you've ever been at a bus station, or especially bus stations in the UK, they're never like straight on, they're always at angles, which makes it easier for people to get on and off buses. So I decided to go ahead and add in 10 bus stops. That's roughly what can fit in this area. Then I go ahead and try add just some bollards at the top, so basically the buses couldn't overreach in it to the passenger area. Then from that I go ahead and add in some buses. It's just using the default bus from the more beautification pack, I want to say, I think, though I'm not 100% sure. Again, I need to learn a wee bit more, and again, it would have been a little bit better if I could have different buses, because all the buses are the same, they're just 4 different colours, which again could symbolise routes, which isn't too bad a thing. However, in the end, I would like to have a wee bit more variety in there. So as you can see now, I'm going ahead and manually placing down the bollards. It's just because I couldn't get the spacing quite to line up without going into any bus stops. So I go ahead and do this, and I go ahead and add in some bus stops, and I go ahead and detail up the road a bit. I also add in some areas for buses which are not at the bus stops as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward this bit. And as you can see here, I'm basically just trying to add in a bus stop for every single bus stop, if that makes sense. So a bus shelter for every single bus stop, trying aligning them, getting the correct angle, that sort of stuff, because even though from a zoomed out distance it's not going to make too much of a difference, it really does make a difference to me. And I was playing around with this for probably too long, to be fair, but I did eventually get it in the end. As you can see at the other side of this bus park, I've got some buses which are stationary in a cordoned off area. I also added in some sort of decay onto the grounds as well, and the final thing I just wanted to add in was some arrows to go ahead and complete this bus park, and then I was pretty happy with that. So with the bus park finished, that was me pretty much done my build. I decided to go ahead and add in an indoor stadium just opposite that, and then it was basically time to just go ahead and add in the finishing details. So as I said, the grounds are quite big. I went ahead and put a fence around it. Now I was thinking about putting a wall around it. I decided to go for an industrial metal fence, which I don't know if that's realistic for a private school or not. Again, I should have maybe referenced the private school. My school had a mixture of metal fence like that, and it also had sort of hedges as well around it. So add in 2 tiny hedges at the entrance here, which don't make too much of a difference and do look a bit silly. But I go ahead and add in loads of paths, and then I just go ahead and basically add in loads of trees to detail up the place, and I do think it looks really nice once I get that complete. I've also added in a few more little details to the bus park and just the whole place in general, which you will see in a few minutes in the cinematics at the end. Again, the cinematics aren't the best just because it is my first time. However, we all do need to start somewhere. So with this video wrapping up now, please go ahead and tell me your honest opinions down below. 2 questions I want to ask. If I was to go ahead and start a City Skylines videos, would you watch it? Now remember, I would, it depends really how much time I have. November's a really busy month for me. I'm happy to go ahead and start it, however there won't be any, there might be like 1 to 2 episodes a week. The good thing is about my other series like Cities XXL for example, I can go ahead and produce a video of that in about 2 hours, just due to the fact that that game you can't really pay too much attention to detail, which in one hand I don't like, but on another hand I do like, because it makes it more enjoyable for me. I don't have to pay attention to the little nitty gritty. So I could go ahead and start a series on this. Based on this build, would you like to see a series on Cities Skylines? I keep getting them mixed up, it's awful. Often I say I often refer to Skylines or say welcome to this next episode of Cities Skylines when I'm playing Cities XXL. It's too similar a name clash. But would you go ahead and watch it? One. The next thing is, did you enjoy this kind of video? Would you like to see some more Let's Builds? Now I do realise that most of this was sped up. It's because this took me I think like over an hour to do. There was a lot of pauses in between as well. I was eating, that sort of stuff. But would you like to see more videos like this in the future? Basically me just talking through my build, what I went ahead and used, and where the idea sort of came from. I could easily do many more of these. I'm definitely going to do another one probably in about a week's time. What should I do for that one? And I'll see basically the response on this video and see how it does. And with that said, finally, if you got any more suggestions for me, for example mods or props, assets which I can go ahead and add in, I'm probably not going to revisit this, so not for this specifically, but if you've got any recommendations then please go ahead and leave that down in the comment section below. So for this first ever really Let's Build, I'm really actually proud of the school in itself. As you're now watching the cinematics in the background, the cinematics again, I do apologise if they're not quite the best, I will improve. But for my first ever proper build actually, I do reckon it is really nice. I've added a lot of detail. Things aren't perfect, for example hedges, but then little nitty gritty details I can definitely go ahead and iron out in future builds. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with the cinematics for now, so hope you have enjoyed this. Please leave a like rating just so I can basically see the response on this video, and if you would like me to go ahead and make some more of these videos. Thank you very much for watching. My name is ConflctNerd Callum and I'm out.